Everybody see what I am sharing with you?
Yes.
Great. All right. So there are two different degrees that you can get that are that consist of your terminal degree in studio art. We do not have a doctorate in studio art. There is a doctorate of critical theory, of philosophy of art, of arts administration. There is not a doctorate in studio art. It doesn't make sense to write a book when what your thesis project ultimately is are objects or art experiences. So an MFA requires twice the credits. It's twice the effort. It's generally considered our terminal degree. So I have an MFA. I am not a doctor, and lots of students call me doctor because they assume that's not true. If you want to teach full-time, you usually have to have an MFA. And when I say teach, I mean at the college level. You can also teach community college. If you have an MA, of course, you can kind of like sometimes get a class here and there at a community college, but generally they will not hire you full-time without an MFA. The MFA is generally 2 to 3 years. 2 is incredibly intensive. If it's a 2-year program, they will presume that you've been in the field for a while. These are generally older people. Yale's program is a 2-year program. So that's 60 credits. An MA is just 32 credits. We used to have an MA at Arkansas State, but we didn't have a lot of money to fund, so we lost it. An MFA generally, though, at that like state school level at most schools is a 3-year commitment. It differs from the MA in that its cachet is much greater because the workload is greater. So it is a critical degree. More often than not, you were not allowed to transfer credits. It's not the kind of thing where you start somewhere and you end somewhere else. Although I am actually one of those people who did that, but I was only able to transfer about half of my credits. I ended up transferring midway through because the program started to dismantle and they were taking away all the studio space. So I ended up completing my degree at a different place that I started it in. So I did 4 years for my MFA. All right. Why would you want an MFA? Basically, it's time. It's time, it's serious inquisition, and it's intensity. What's that sound?
I don't like that.
That'll be in the video. All right, so you'll be getting an advanced degree because you will have an in-depth, deep dive into making art as a professional artist. It is a professional degree. Advanced degrees are becoming sort of the standard now. A lot of people have bachelor's degrees, so it's never a bad idea to get, I think, an advanced degree, especially if you're not paying a ton of money for it. And we'll talk about that in a minute. This will allow you an opportunity to network. It'll allow you an opportunity to build a community that of your peers that essentially will be defining the market within the next 5 to 10 years. So these are the people who will have the jobs that you want and can facilitate that. You'll be able to reach a very, very full potential creatively and in a very challenging environment where people deeply care about your work. And when I say deeply care about your work, I mean you will regularly have faculty in there once, twice a week and regularly have student crits. So it's a much more intensive approach to making art. And that's pretty much all you're expected to do. It'll also help you get a job. Statistically, those people who do get degrees and then advanced degrees make over $1 million more than the average person without an advanced degree in their lifetime. Reasons why you shouldn't get an MFA. A lot of people think it's just something to do. It can be incredibly expensive, especially the Ivy Leagues. Yale's program is $60,000, $70,000 a year. And most private art schools, it pretty much runs that. It is a very discipline specific investment. If you are on the fence about being a painter, don't go and get a painting MFA. Take lots of gap years while you think about this time. When I interview someone or have been interviewed about wanting to get an MFA, sometimes a big mistake that people will say is, well, I want it to be able to teach. And that is not necessarily the reason you want to get an MFA. It's certainly not a reason you would ever want to share with anybody. It'll help me get a job. Not necessarily. It really is dependent on what you do with that time while you're getting that MFA. It's something to do in a bad economy, not a reason to get an MFA. Like I said, it's an investment. Your entire world will revolve around making art. And if you were in any way up in arms about that, or just sort of flippantly committed, it's not a thing to do, especially with how much money it can cost. I will learn more techniques. That's not true at all. You're not going to be focusing on technique when you are. Oh, I have another participant. I am going to allow her in. Yay. Okay, Megan is here. Okay, great. I'm going to keep going. You will not focus on technique while you're in school for an MFA. You will focus primarily and exclusively on ideas and philosophy and criticism. If you're on the fence about any of those things, you want to consider a certificate program instead. Think about, going into gallery work. Think about going into restoration work. Think about museum studies as a potential, because that is a one-year investment, and a certificate can actually give you at least an introduction so that you know that that is indeed the discipline in the field that you'd like to go into. All right, are there any questions so far? Nothing? No? Okay. Generally in an application, you're going to have a couple of things. There are 2 applications for an MFA program. In that MFA program, you will have an application to not only the graduate school, but also the School of Art. And those are 2 separate applications. The application into the graduate school is far simpler than the one into the art school, but they are different, and they oftentimes have different fees. Sometimes they're together. In the grad school application, it generally has a statement of purpose or a personal history statement. That is a general statement. It doesn't talk specifically about your discipline, i.e. art. There will be required 3 letters of recommendation. Ask for those letters of recommendation very early, at the very, very minimum 2 weeks. For grad school, I would ask a month and a half out, and then send reminders again and again if they are not submitted. They'll ask for your official transcripts, which generally you have to pay for. They'll ask you for a CV, which is different than a resume. A CV is a lengthier document that includes pretty much everything you've ever done. We can talk about that at length in class. And then GRE. What is a GRE? Sometimes schools require a GRE. It's becoming far less important. That's the graduate records examination. And it's an all-day test. It's about $100 to take. It is hard. And sometimes if you score well, they will give you grants because of it. Most schools do not require this anymore for art school, but some do. So heads up on that. On the art school application, you'll have a portfolio of generally 15 to 20 works. In that portfolio, we will discuss what needs to go in it. Typically, it'll be online. Some old-fashioned schools require like a CD, probably not though anymore. And it will be an uploading service. It'll ask for an artist statement, and then a separate slide list of everything you included on that portfolio. The department will have its own application, and then you'll have to write a written statement. Usually that'll be called something like statement of purpose or letter of intent. And we'll talk about that in a few moments. Okay. This is, if anything, one of those slides you want to take a picture of. What goes into a portfolio? It's cohesive. That is the first and primary rule of any portfolio when scrutiny is going to be essentially about your professional aptitude. It can't be a mishmash. It can't be a little bit of this and a little bit of that, meaning it can't be some work from your watercolor class that was a still life when you are an abstract expressionist painter in oil. You should show some sort of evidence of a personal vision and direction, and some sense as an individual artist, that you are unique, that you can add something different to the program. Some programs look for diversity. Some programs are known for certain things, like Indiana University is very traditionally academic, and naturalist, figuration is part of what their focus is. And so you would apply there if you did that. You want to try something beyond your assignments. So when people are reviewing your slides, they're looking for someone that they don't have to remediate, meaning they're not going to have sit down with you and show you how to mix color. All of your conversations are not going to be about, errors in drawing. So technique kind of, is really paramount in that you are working on building a coherency regarding your voice. If you're applying to a specific area like sculpture, and 20 slides are requested, at least so many of them will need to be sculpture. Generally, they'll be specific about that in the application. I would highly recommend that you run your portfolio by a number of faculty to get their take on it. I can't stress that enough. The more you keep it secret, the more likely you are to not get in. We've seen these applications. We've been through the school. Highly recommend that you would open yourself up to that, and you have a much higher likelihood of getting in. Photo quality is kind of everything. Make sure that you have edited and made perfect slides. If you have poopy slides, I know faculty who wouldn't even think twice about finishing looking at the 20 slides. It is somebody that they know that will not take great pains to present themselves in a professional manner. So make sure your images are good. I would project your slides or hook them up to a big screen so that you can see how the body of work looks and that you can assess the order in which it is looked at, and in a way that has balance. So you generally start out with the 5 strongest works. The middle work, the body of the portfolio, is sort of the weaker, not as strong. And then you want to end on the 5, or on the 2 of the strongest works as well. So you want a wonderful sandwich of the best bread you can possibly put together. Are there any questions about the portfolio so far? No? Okay. Oh, it looks like I maybe have. If, hey, will one of you read anything that Ken throws at me if he types it? Because I'm not getting those while I record, okay?
Okay.
All right. A strong portfolio is going to have a couple of things. Strong technical skills. It'll have a personal voice. It'll be creative, meaning you're taking great risks. You're going to have the fundamentals exhibiting. It'll be really clear and coherent. You're going to have a broad range of skill sets. You're not just going to be a one-trick pony. So a lot of people think that coherent imagery means that it isn't exhibiting a broad range of technique. It is, believe it or not. Some sort of reference to art history and contemporary art. If you are just simply miming what a well-known artist is already doing, I highly doubt you will get into graduate school. If you are miming someone from art history, but you are relensing it or you're changing it and updating it, I highly do feel you will definitely get into art school and probably get money. A weak portfolio will be inconsistent. There's no connection from one work to the next. It won't have any technical merit. It'll be clumsy. It won't be professional. It will rely on kitsch or trite subject matter. It'll be overly used. Some examples might be the emotional purge, you using your audience as therapy, tampon art, cliches that you see in art school, right? That's a big thing. Camp without consciousness. So if it's tongue-in-cheek, we better be aware that it's tongue-in-cheek. Or smugly clever, like, oh, it's all art historical paintings taken from the great figurative painter Rubens, but everyone is a transformer. That's smugly clever. It's a one-trick pony. All work from your courses. That won't get into graduate school. Poor lighting. No awareness of art history. Those are things that will be a surefire way of you not getting in. Does your portfolio include classroom assignments? No, in short, not many. Have as few as you possibly can. If you have classroom assignments that actually like initiated a body of work, sure. And that body of work is exhibited in there, fine. Could you have 2 bodies of work in a portfolio of 20 slides? Absolutely. As long as they're consistent, it means you're trying new things in undergrad, but make sure that those 2 bodies of work are consistent. Is your work mainly focused on developing technique? Like, is it just about your handling of paint? It depends on the program. If a program is very, very classical, then you might get in simply based on technique, simply based on your technical merit. If you want to get into a great program, they'll look at both. They'll look at your conceptual coherency and your sort of gravity with that, and they'll also look at your handling of your specific media. All right, your portfolio shouldn't consist of 20 unrelated works, so I've drilled that into you. All right, order your slides in the way I discussed earlier, so lead with your strongest work. Your first image or 2 are incredibly critical. The middle should be, pretty good, and then the last work should be very good. Make sure that the slides look good. And if you have to send in a CD, which I doubt, make sure it works on a Mac and a PC. All right. Generally, a program will only view your work within a few minutes. They might get 200 applications. So it's a good idea on the slides, if your work is highly conceptual, that you have a little bit of a statement that might be included on that slide list, especially if you're a sculptor and we need some context to how that work is displayed. You've all seen those, right? The little, what we call those didactics in say a museum. You'll see those in the Bradbury quite a bit. All right, letters of recommendation. Make sure you ask for them early and follow up. If you've been out of school for a while, make sure you send an update to your letters of reference or your potential letters of reference about what you've been doing. It's a really good idea to stay in contact with people who may be letters of recommendation as you move forward in your career, even if it's before grad school, so that you're not like, oh, right, I remember you from 10 years ago. I don't remember what to say about you though. So make sure that you kind of stay in contact and you keep a good relationship. If you are a purgy person on social media and you do not exhibit the best ethos there, it's probably not in your best interest to friend your old professors or bosses, because that will definitely paint a picture. Short notice sometimes is unavoidable, but make sure that you give an adequate timeline for your people. So communication is really important there. Remind your letter writers how they know you if you need to. I had these courses with you. And then if you need to refresh their memory, you can send a few images of student work that you did in their class. If it's a long period of time, you never know when you'd apply for a graduate program. It might not be right after school. If you received a B or below, I probably would not ask for a letter of recommendation from that faculty member. I know that sounds harsh, but I probably would not. And even if you have a good relationship with your faculty, ask them very politely and with professionalism. If you presume that they are going to write you one, and you just blindly, submit their names to the schools in your application and you never notify them, it will really, really upset your letter writers, because it's presumptuous. It's rude and presumptuous because it does take a good long while to craft a letter. It also presumes that you were, something that you may not know you were to them. Are there any questions about the letters? Everybody still there?
Yep, all
Great.
good.
Okay. Your statement of intent or your statement of work, it's 1 page. Be concise. It's basically an introduction of who you are. I grew up in such and such. I am the child of a single mother, lower middle class. It is a supplement to your slide portfolio in order to kind of cushion what it is you're doing, to give some sort of insight into what it is you're doing, and then what it is you want to gain from graduate school. So this is definitely a slide I would take a photo of if I were you. So you want time, you want more technical know-how, you want exposure to new ideas and concepts, you want an investment in a community of very serious students. All of those are great reasons to throw into what you'd have in a statement of intent. Make sure that you know that they are reading large numbers of them. So don't ramble on, make sure it's clear. Have someone else read it before you submit it. It is important. Does your artist statement or essay, so your artist essay, or it can be called either or, indicate that you want to make art? I can't stress enough how enthusiasm plays a major role when you are straddling the line between two students and you're thinking of giving one of those students a $10,000 grant. If that student talks explicitly and wholeheartedly about their investment in painting, then that's a student that I'm probably going to award that grant to be perfectly direct. Yeah. Okay. What key factors does the graduate admissions staff consider while assessing prospective students? Well, that's the graduate school. This isn't necessarily always the art school. So your educational achievement, your transcripts, how well did you do in your art courses? Did you do well in your writing and English courses and your art history? Those are pretty much across the line what you're going to be focusing on in grad school. You're not going to take a math class in grad school. They're going to read your letters of recommendation. Yes, I can absolutely write a tepid letter of recommendation, and I have many times. This student showed up on time to my courses, period. Just because your letter writers said they'd write you one, are they really the best person to write you a letter of recommendation? Did you have a solid foundational tight relationship with this person that really did mimic a kind of mentor-mentee exchange? If you didn't, and they can just speak to you being in a class of 100, they're going to write you a tepid letter. So they're going to read them, so that's important. Your essay or your statement of intent, they will read it, basically include your goals, what you want to get out of grad school, and then what you want to do after. And then, of course, your portfolio. And to be perfectly honest, your portfolio is the first thing. That is the first and most important thing because it is a measure of your creative ability. Any questions so far? Okay. Sometimes you will have an interview. In fact, a lot of times you will have an interview once you pass the first round of acceptance. So what goes on in an interview? It's very much like a job interview. When you go, it's usually with a committee of advanced graduate faculty. So someone from your area, and then 2 other faculty from the other disciplines. It is nerve-wracking. It is horrible. But some tips about it: expressing your motivation and your enthusiasm for your work. Make sure you are expressing your devotion to your work. Talk a little bit about your creative process, how you make an image. This is one of the questions we ask when you graduate at your BFA review or at your BFA defense, your thesis defense. You want to make sure you convey that you are open to new ideas and concepts. If you convey that you are rigid and that you are inflexible with new ideas, they won't want to work with you. That is not a good student. That is not a student you would want to have. You want to talk about your artistic education, what you got from undergrad and what you're looking to get from grad. You want to talk about your work articulately. You want to be confident, fake it until you make it. And then you want to be able to answer the question, why do you want to go here? If you haven't done your research and you drive all the way out to University of wherever, and they ask you this question and you don't know why their program is different, or you can't speak to the work that's being produced there, or you can't talk about the faculty you'd want to work with there, there's no point. You're probably not going to get in. Choosing a program, you might be accepted to a bunch of programs if you apply to a bunch of programs and you've got a strong portfolio. That definitely does happen. You want to look at the school's reputation. There are Reddit forums for this, and there are lists for this. So just Google them. You want to think about the location. Is it in a town? Is it near a city? Is it in a city? Cities can sometimes be distracting and very expensive. And in the middle of nowhere can be great because there's nothing else to do other than to make art. What kind of art community is there though? And that will really speak to what program you want. And that will come in a visit. And of course you can visit any of the programs you apply to. Is there financial aid or teaching assistantships? I advise you to never go to a program that you can't pay for. And I want that to sit with you all. I don't think that you should spend $100,000 to get your MFA in studio. I don't think that that is a wise investment. I think that you should have your way paid for because you were ultimately the cheapest labor for them as a teaching assistant or as a shop assistant. Is there studio space? If there isn't studio space, I would not advise you to go there. You do not want to work at your kitchen table for your MFA exhibition. Check out the faculty, look at their work. Is it aligned with your values? Is there someone there that you would be excited in working with? Is that person near retirement? Are they going to retire in your 3 years there? Do they have a visiting artist program? Is it busy? Do they have funding for that? Is there flexibility in the program? Like, is there a variety of students going there? Not only in terms of the diversity in background, and race and gender in class, but also in the diversity of the work that's actually going on. Do they have a program that suits your particular medium and style of work? Is their painting program weak? If their painting program is weak, don't go. And you're going for painting. What other resources are on campus outside of the department? Is it a place you want to live? And then really scour that website. Really, really look at it. See what's available. See if there are examples of student work. Are they proud of their student work? Are they showing it in social media? Other things you might want to consider is how many years the program is going to be, the facilities themselves. Are they good facilities? You want to think about the geography. You want to think about the financial aid situation. Is there a lot of financial aid? There are programs in this country that if you get in, fully fund every single MFA student. Be prepared to teach. It's a good experience. It's not necessarily the thing for everybody, but it's a great way to make your tuition back. If you need to, take some time off. If you personally are very tired of school and the constraints that it might hold on you intellectually and emotionally, take some time off. Know what to expect. It's going to be a lot of work. Okay. When you are thinking about where to apply, because it does cost money to apply. Sometimes it's $50, sometimes it's $100 to apply to a school. Set up a comparison chart, pros and cons. When is the application deadline? Generally, the application deadline for schools is, and listen carefully to this, early January, February. Early January, February. So those of you who are seniors right now, who are thinking about going to graduate school and wanting to apply this year for next year, so fall of 2021, you will have an application in by January, early February, this term. So, winter break. Is everybody clear on that? Yeah, okay. How many credits do you need to complete the program? Do you need to take the GRE? If a GRE is required into the graduate school, you need to be thinking about taking the GRE within the next 2 months. Everybody heard that, hopefully. Are there seminar requirements? Seminars are great. It's a kind of academic situation where you're in a classroom, but you're all sort of colleagues. All the students are participating. And then so on. Costs, diversity, all the things already talked about. Once you get in, And generally I advise a student, if you're not, if you're dead set on getting in and it's all or nothing, ride or die, apply to 10 schools. You'll definitely get into one. Apply to 2 amazing schools, apply to 5 pretty darn good schools, and apply to 3 safeties. But if you are open to this and you feel like this investment, the wind could take you here or there, apply to 5 schools, apply to an amazing school, apply to 3 pretty good schools that will pay your way, and apply to a safety. So the same kind of logic that you would apply for undergrad. When you hear back, usually you hear back in April about whether or not you got in and whether or not you got money. Sometimes they'll actually call you if you did get money. I am giving you a fellowship. We're giving you a scholarship. We're giving you a teaching assistantship. This is going to pay for everything. Whoop-de-doo-dah. If that's the case, you want to visit the school. Visit any school that you get in. You can also visit schools that you haven't gotten in if you've got the time. And during COVID, it might be the time. You want to see the studios. What's going on in the studios? Is there work being done? If there's not work being done, trust that gut instinct and don't go there. If it's bad work, if it's crappy work, do not go there. If a visit isn't possible, try to telephone interview with the grad chair. Ask all the questions. Make a list of those questions to ask. If you need clarification, if you need explanation. All right, what is a prevailing departmental philosophy or direction? Is there a consistent one? If you enter the program in painting, is it also possible to take, say, printmaking or video or sculpture? Is it really discipline specific, or is there a crossover? And that really depends on your interests. What technology is available for grad students? Do you get a computer? Do you have access to an office, etc.? And then let's see, what are the spaces like? That is a primary concern for all of you. Does everybody get a studio? All right. Well, we've already talked about deadlines. I'm changing that late December, early January to early January, February. Don't miss a deadline. You won't get in if you do. There is a cat playing with an electronic toy behind me, and that is going to make this recording as well. All right, things that matter. Only 36% of graduate students are actually accepted. So you really got to put together a tight application packet. So really do show your skill level and really do show your ideas, and try to pick the best images. Get as much advice as you possibly can. And the single most important tip about applying to graduate school is follow their instructions. Do not deviate. Whenever we have a job call, I can't tell you how many professional university professors do not follow the application instructions. They send too much, they send too little, they don't send what they need, or they're missing things. That is a terrible, grave error. Do not do that. I won't have the patience when I'm looking at the 100th and 180th application to go through your 10-page artist statement when I've been clear that I only need 1. Questions so far? No questions yet? Okay. We'll have Q&A at the end as well. We're almost done. Tips for images. Use white and surrounding background, not black, for scale and context. If your work is really textural, shoot your work against a wall so that you can see the texture on the sides. You do not need details for every image. In fact, most of you do not need details unless the work is really big. Consider working with one of the photo students or a professional photographer if you got the money. You generally do need detail shots if you are 3D though. If you're presenting both still and moving images, present them in 2 groups with still images followed by all of the moving images. The work shouldn't be older than 3 years old, and preferably within the last 12 months, believe that or not. If your work is slow going though, that might not be possible. Make sure that you conform to their viewing format. They may tell you how large each image is. 8x10, 72 DPI. Follow that to a T. Make sure the naming protocol is also followed. Sometimes they will also specify that. In your slide, you can include your name, title, materials, scale, and date in the lower right-hand corner, typically the way we would sign a work or the way we would display it in a museum. If they don't want that, they'll be direct about it. All right, How does a program help students find jobs in the arts? They make it generally a point. They care about you and they care about your professional success, other than just networking. They are ranked on a scale of best institutions in the country if they get successful students. So generally what they will do other than networking is facilitate opportunities for you in your grad assistantships that will set you up to work in the field, whether that be working in the gallery or the museum or in the shop, being an artist assistant to one of the instructors, um, to working in the 3D shop. All of those things can be really, really helpful. And I've seen a whole variety of things. Promoting the department, arts administration, all of those things can be a really good way for you to gain access to experience that will lead to opportunities after you have your MFA. And you can speak to that in interviews after you get your MFA. So really talk about that with your committees. You will assemble a committee, and make sure you attend every workshop they have, every convention they have, every program they have, every visiting artist that comes in, you want to tap into. It'll also give you easier access to job openings and teaching opportunities, and of course, mentorship. Things that'll help you, in addition to an application, a website or a blog. If you have a website or a blog that's easy for them to refer to, some schools now just require that. Some kind of exhibition record. If you're not showing now, you need to be. You need to try to be a self-starter and do little shows, do little house shows, whatever you can do in order to get that line on your resume, do it. Apply to shows, apply to juried exhibitions. You want to have department visibility. You want to be in clubs and activities, and if you can, be an officer in those things. You want to be able to speak to those in your interview. You want to have good grades. And you want to have, most importantly, a slick professional presentation. So make sure that all of your letters, your letter of intent, your artist statement, your CV, whatever it is you're applying with, all has a consistent letterhead. Okay? All right, I am going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm sure I have a bunch of questions over here. Nope. Okay. So far, do you guys have questions? You can unmute, all of you, if you'd like.
I did. I'm thinking right quick. 1 second.
Okay. I also have documents to go through with y'all, of like what a press release would look like, questions that they generally ask in jobs, and like a grant proposal and then gallery proposals. So I can share those with y'all, but I'm kind of talked out and ready for some questions.
Oh, okay. I remembered what it was. For like the CVs and everything like that, do you have any like examples that we could like look at?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to go through one right now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me share screen again. All right. Oh, that is not it. Poop. All right. So here's an old resume of mine. Can you all see it?
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right. An old resume will include letterhead to start. And in that letterhead, you'll have your address, your phone number, your email address, and of course, your website if you have one. In this particular CV, I've included my biography. So I have an example of a biography here. So it basically just talks about, I received my BFA from this school, I got my MFA from this school, and then a short synopsis of my major accomplishments, any awards I've gotten, any grants I've gotten, any major projects I've done, and then what my current position is and where I live. So that's a bio, and I'm happy to share my bio with you. You can find those on any professional artist's website. Then you have your education, so you'll just have your 1 degree, and it'll be upcoming. So you won't have it just yet, but it'll be upcoming or impending. Then you have your professional experience. So whatever jobs you've had that you think would be helpful to mention. If you were an assistant, if you were gallery assistant, shop assistant, etc., that's where you want to put that. If you taught a few classes at the Foundation of the Arts, that's where you would put your professional experience. If you worked for an office, that can be important as well. You never know where they might put you for an assistantship. And then from there, you have your exhibitions. So on and on and on. And I start with my, and granted, I have a 20-year career, y'all, so don't fret. But I have all of my solo exhibitions listed first. And then I have my 2-person exhibitions. I just have a few of those. And then I have a million group exhibitions, and goes on and on and on from there. Okay. Once the exhibition, and you go about 7 years back. So as you get older, you'll kind of like start to cut things out. Then you go into your publications, which I think, sorry, it's a long, any awards and mentions. So if you win an award at the juried exhibition, if you win an award at, an honorable mention, whatever. Oh, also your assistantships or your scholarships for school. That's where you'd put that as well. Any related experience you might have. Were you asked to speak in an elementary school? Were you brought along by a professor to do that? Those are all related experience, and that's where you put that. And then I've taught some courses, and any collections you're in. Who has bought your work? If they're all private collections, that's great. Put them in there. I have way more than that, but those are just the ones I've got on this old CV. So public and private collections, and then you end always on a bibliography. So anything you've ever been printed in, even in high school, go all the way back. So anything you've ever been in, any books, I've been in some books and I've been in some magazines. So that's all where that goes. And that is your CV. I'm happy to share a CV with you. That's not intellectual property, so I can send that to y'all if you like. Questions about a CV? None?
I think you covered it.
Okay.